Good evening and welcome to the Parent Council meeting for James Gillespie's High School. You are all very welcome. It's been a bit of a rushing day for some of us, and I hope it has not been too rushful for you. So I hope this is a useful hour and a half that we will spend together discussing some of the issues that have of relevance to the school. I will quickly just share some slides that sort of give a brief overview of what will happen for today. Let me just find them, which they are just here, and I will start. Can you see that okay? Okay, brilliant. I will just make them full screen. There we go. So welcome to the Parent Council meeting for today. We are due to be meeting from 7 till 8:30. We always say we'll meet for an hour and a half, and I think we have rarely managed that, but we will try and keep to time, because I appreciate you all have things that you need to get on and do. The first thing to say obviously is welcome. We are very grateful that you join and that you engage with the work that the Parent Council does, and also you're interested to follow up with the activities at the school that are going to be shared by the teachers and the head teacher and his report later on during the meeting. So thank you, and again, welcome to the meeting. Just briefly, this is the agenda. So just to, as we sort of intimated through the school newsletter, the main focus of activity today is hearing about the health and wellbeing and Inclusion X support that is offered at the school. And so Mr. Porter and Anna Kirkwood are here to talk about that, and they will start off the meeting and give a description of what's happening, and you'll have the opportunity to put any questions or make any comments in the Q&A that's on your screen there. So if you have any questions as they're going through their presentation, please do put them into the Q&A, and then we will take their any questions that you've had about what they've said and about what's been going on immediately following their presentations. Following that, Mr. Mccallum and possibly Tracy Urquhart from the City of Edinburgh Council will have some comments about some of the recent activity that you may have read about in the press about the former teacher at the school who was convicted of offences, and they just want to give some information about that and how that's been handled and how that's being dealt with. So that's a new item that we've added to the agenda, but it's obviously important for the school to know how that has been handled and what's being put in place and the steps that are being taken there. From then, we will then move to the usual items that we have for the Parent Council. So an update on what the Parent Council itself has been doing and the activities we've been involved with recently. We're hopeful that we will have an update from the work of the JGHS Trust, which is a charitable organisation that's connected with the school, and so we'll hopefully hear what they've been doing and the interactions that the Parent Council may have with them going forward. Neil will give his normal report with various issues that have come up at the school, questions that have been asked by parents, and just a general update on what has been going on. And then there'll be the question and answer session at the end. So as I say, during the meeting, if you have any questions at all, please do put them into the Q&A. Please do like any questions that you see that other people have asked, because that allows us obviously to tell what's an important issue that many people would like to hear more comment on. And so it allows us to prioritise the questions in case we run out of time to get through them all. So that is the agenda for this evening. And I will now stop sharing my screen and let Mr. Porter share his, and we'll start the comments here about the health and wellbeing and Inclusion X at James Gillespie's High School. Thanks so much, Ian and Anna, for joining us this evening. So I think their slides will be appearing shortly.
Good evening. Can I just check that you can hear me and you can see the slides? Thanks, Hilary. And thank you for the introduction. Good evening, everybody. My name is Ian Porter, and I'm one of the deputy head teachers at James Gillespie's High School. A big part of my remit is overseeing pupil support at the school. So my brief today was to give some insight into what Inclusion X actually means and what we do. And I'm delighted to say that Anna Kirkwood, who's one of our Inclusion X teachers, is here this evening too, and Anna will tell us a little bit about herself and some of the more specific things that Anna and the team will do as part of Inclusion X. Okay, am I in control of the slides, Hilary? Can I just move one on, or are you in control of that? Oh, there we go. So just setting the sort of national context, and forgive me for just reading out the slide, but Scottish Government have an inclusion statement, and within education we look at the national picture, we look at the local Edinburgh picture, then we think about the needs of James Gillespie's High School. So the national picture, before we get into James Gillespie's High School, as you'll see, there's the statement about inclusion there. I'm just going to minimise something. So it starts from the belief that education is a human right and the foundation for a more just society, an inclusive approach which recognises diversity and holds the ambition that all children and young people are enabled to achieve to their fullest potential is the cornerstone to achieve equity and excellence in education for all our children and young people. And equity and excellence is the vision for Scottish education, and it's about how inclusion underpins all of that. So that's the national picture. Looking more at James Gillespie's, this is the structure we have with pupil support. So we have 4 communities. Other schools may refer to them as houses. We call them communities: Lauder, Roslin, Spilo and Darrick. So if I just, for simplicity's sake, if I just take one of the communities, because they all pretty much mirror each other, but the Lauder community at the top, you will have a deputy head teacher in charge of that community. So for Lauder, it's Deirdre O'Brien. And then you'll have 2 pupil support leaders, we call PSLs. There's a lot of acronyms in education, so I'll try and not use too many acronyms this evening. So we have 2 pupil support leaders in Lauder, Caitlin Garrett and Sarah Britton, and then we have a support for learning teacher assigned to each community, which for Lauder is Lisa Fallon. So if your child is in Lauder community, you'll have that team around them of a deputy, a pupil support leader, and where appropriate, someone from support for learning. And that's replicated in the Roslin community and the Spilo community. The only difference is the Darrick community where we have 1 pupil support leader just now, and that's Mr. Alexander, who job shares with Ronan Doherty, and Ronan does a Friday as a pupil support leader for the Darrick community. And just while I'm on this slide, within the Roslin community, you'll see that Kate Pearce is one of the pupil support leaders, but Kate has been off long term, and Laurie Crawford has been acting up in her stead for the last month or so. So Laurie is in post there at the moment. So just one other thing before I move on to the next slide. If we go back to the Lauder one, if your child is 1L1 or 1L2, oh, beg your pardon, it's gone forward, or 1L1, 1L2 or 1L3, they would have been assigned to Sarah Britton, but I can see the slides moved on now, so I think that's my cue just to move on. In terms of what is Inclusion X then, Inclusion X are those pupil support leaders, support for learning, and those community teams, as well as our Wellbeing Hub, our SNUG, our mental health supports, and our PEF, which is the Pupil Equity Funding. And we have a development officer just now at James Gillespie's High School, James Gunn, who's leading on the Pupil Equity Fund, and we have a pupil support officer for attendance, Joao Rees. So that's the team there. I've already mentioned support for learning, who's part of the community teams. So what might be new to some of the audience is the Wellbeing Hub and the SNUG. The Wellbeing Hub, particularly a provision for S1 to S3. Chelsea Ewing is our curriculum leader for the Wellbeing Hub, but will be going off on maternity leave next term. So we have Anna Parks, who will be acting up as the CL in the Wellbeing Hub for the foreseeable future. But the Wellbeing Hub, as I say, will focus S1 to S3, and we'll look more at the social behavioural needs of some of our youngsters who might need that bit more targeted support. The SNUG, which Anna will tell you a bit more about, that's more of our intensive support. And other schools across Edinburgh, you may hear the terms enhanced support provisions, and that's what a lot of schools are sticking with. We had a SNUG in place. It was doing an awful lot of good work, and then when we had the opportunity to introduce enhanced support provision, rather than further confuse it, we kept with the terminology of SNUG, but it's just come under that umbrella of Inclusion X. I have realised that I've put these slides on a timer, which was silly. Although it's a good cue for me, I realise I'm not getting quite to the end of what I wanted to say. In terms of strands of support, And this is, again, across Scottish education. You have universal support, targeted support, and intensive support. Universal is what every young person at James Gillespie High School will receive through their class teachers, through their non-teaching staff, their key adults. Everybody gets a certain level of universal support. The targeted support is more your pupil support leaders, your support for learning, the Wellbeing hub. So it's those who may need that extra additional bit of support to help them thrive at school. And then the third tier of that is this intensive support, and that's where the snug would come in. But it's all of these different bodies, if you like, that make up Inclusion X. And I think that will be on the next slide, but it's essentially a staged intervention of universal for everybody, targeted for maybe that 20-30% who need that additional support, and then a few who need that intensive support that's provided through our snug. And again, just a terminology, the Inclusion X is a collaboration. So that's what the X is essentially standing for. It's inclusion by, with, through the provision of support for our pupils. We want to get away from that idea of labeling pupils as this is a snug child, this is a Wellbeing hub child, this is a support for learning child. We just feel that by working together through all these different departments, we've got a better chance of offering a package of support, which would meet the needs of your child. So that's the only reason that we've just decided to call it Inclusion X as opposed to enhanced support provision, which is what most other schools are calling this. And just a graphic that will hopefully portray what I'm trying to articulate. The young person's always at the centre. We do use the Gerfic framework. The young person's always at the centre. Learning and teaching is our vehicle to try and support our young people achieve, attain, and be healthy. And then the teams around that, which is more on the outer circle, your targeted and intensive. So support for learning and English as additional language. That's more targeted for learning. You've got your pupil equity support, as I mentioned earlier, which is looking at our young people who essentially are entitled to free school meals and ensuring that they've got access to opportunities. We have our pupil support leaders and community teams, and then we have our mental health wellbeing support, wellbeing hub support and counselling. I haven't mentioned we have a counselling service too at the school, so that would be part of this collaboration of Inclusion X, and then the snug team, as I say, and other schools are perhaps referred to enhanced support provision. So all of those things make up Inclusion X, and it has the young person at the heart of everything we do. The learning and teaching part is that universal support, I suppose I was talking about, where everyone has access to support through learning and teaching. But then you have those other layers for targeted and intensive. And just a quote, I started with a national picture, and I'll finish my input about Inclusion X. So collaborative working supports inclusive practice. Effective collaboration is underpinned by a clear mutual focus on meeting the needs of individuals. It is supported by clear lines of communication and a shared understanding of roles and responsibilities. Just going to stop sharing my screen for a second, Hilary, if I may. Set me back on there. So we've carried out assemblies for all year groups to explain Inclusion X. We've had staff in service and child protection training more recently, where we've gone through exactly what this is. Teachers' roles within the universal support. What's our expectation of all of us? What's the role of the pupil support leader, support for learning, the snug, the wellbeing hub? And we've looked at just making sure we are all on the same page in terms of what we can offer to best support young people, whatever their needs may be. So Anna, that might be an opportune time for me to pass over to you, introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you do in the snug, for example. Thank you.
You're muted currently, and I'm not quite sure. Can you unmute yourself, okay? Oh, you're trying. Thank you. At this point, I don't know. Sometimes it's really awkward, and you're best off just leaving and coming in again in case there's a problem there. Because I know we could hear you earlier.
Hello.
There
Can
you
you
are.
hear me?
There you are. We can
Right,
hear you.
okay.
Thank you.
Hello, everybody. It's so lovely to meet you all. My name is Anna Kirkwood, and I am delighted to be the teacher for the SNUG, which means supported, nurtured, understood and growth. I suppose it'd be nice for you to have a bit about my background. So I am 53. I've been in education my whole life, and I first worked as a primary teacher for many years, and then I went into support for learning. I have worked as a transition development officer, and I also did literacy and dyslexia support officer. And then I worked for 10 years at Pilrig Park, which is a complex additional needs secondary school in Edinburgh. So I've worked for Edinburgh for 25 years and I love my job. I love Gillespie's. I'm absolutely delighted to be there. I think we've got an amazing team, and I'm actually really delighted that the government has finally seen that all children need to be included, and that is a priority for education right now. So we have all children now are in Edinburgh are entitled, if they wish, to be part of their catchment school, which I personally believe is the right thing, and I have the skills to do that. And I passionately believe in it because I'm all about getting it right for every child. I have an amazing team that I work with in Inclusion X. I have an amazing head teacher who's fantastic, and Ian, who's a wonderful deputy for Inclusion X. Rob, who couldn't be here tonight, who's Support for Learning, Head of Support for Learning, is fantastic. Just a little bit of background about me as well. I have two children who also went to James Gillespie's High School. They've both been success stories. One, I would say, is neurodivergent, the other one not, neurotypical, I suppose you could say. Both fantastically included and success stories from James Gillespie's High School. They've both gone on to university, and I believe that that's down to the fantastic staff that we have. I'm delighted to be part of their team, and I absolutely love working with these kids. I believe every child has rights. I'm passionate about getting it right for every child. UNICEF, children's rights. So I led my last school. We got bronze and silver awards for rights respecting schools. My previous school, we got gold, and I'm sure we're going to go on and get gold at Gillespie's, but it's just it's my life's passion, I suppose. And I believe that it's right that all children are included, that we do that where we can. So that's going to look very different for all children. For some, it will mean more time with me in the SNUG and my team. And then gradually we transition them into subjects where we can. And my hope is that gradually as they go up the school, they will be able to go into more subjects, but we will support them wherever we can to meet their fullest potential, to meet their needs, to meet what they can achieve, and to support them to be lifelong learners and to go on and blossom and cherish really in society. So that's me. If you want to ask me anything, I can absolutely tell you what I do.
I think that would be helpful, Anna, if you could. Yes, if you just sort of give a little bit, and maybe say a little bit about who the team is and how they support the pupils
Of course.
that you work with. That would be really interesting. Thank you.
Of course. So in the SNUG, I'm the teacher, and I have a PSO, Jordan Sinclair, who's also fantastic. She's a dance teacher, but she's also really qualified in working with young people with complex needs. She's worked previously at St Peter's, she's worked at Frogston. She's absolutely passionate about what she does as well. And then I also have a PSA, Andrew White, who was in New Zealand for many years, but has joined us. He's really lovely, kind, lovely person. So that between the three of us, we support all the young people that have complex needs or additional needs. And that includes things like, well, mostly autism and a learning disability. So we have many young people that work between the SNUG, the Wellbeing Base and Support for Learning, but I'd say that probably the most complex are in the SNUG. So they may have come from an enhanced support base, where they may have been largely in a base and not been able to be in classes. And we do still have 1 or 2 young people like that, but we are gradually trying to get them into some mainstream classes. So for some of our young people, that could be PE, home economics, CDT, things that they're particularly interested in that they might be able to manage. And we're gradually trying to increase the amount of time that they can be in a class, so that they can be in a class with their peers, they can be accepted, they can be with their peer group. But obviously for different young people, it varies the time that they can actually be on task or be in that environment. So we've got some that maybe mostly manage the curriculum, but they may come to us for a soft start and a soft finish, or they may come to us for like breaks. So, you know, if they're having a meltdown, they can phone the SNUG, we can get them, we can bring them up. It may be just that they need that little bit of time out, a little bit of emotional work, maybe a weighted blanket, come down time, and then we'll gradually try and get them back to their next mainstream class. So actually, I think we've got a really good success record. I think we've got some young people who are mostly managing the curriculum, but there are times where they just need that little bit of come down time. And we're also looking at how we can support mainstream classes and mainstream teachers who don't have that training to include these young people and what it is they can do to make their classroom environment more, I suppose, more attractive, more comfortable, where they're going to have less meltdowns. But we're also sending support staff. So my PSO, Jordan, or my PSA, Andrew White, they will go with these young people to certain classes to support them in English and maths and different subjects so that they can be included.
Fantastic. But it's interesting, there's just the 3 of you to cover the huge school, so you have a huge task, I think.
Oh, okay, so that's only my department. So Inclusion X is the SNUG, the Wellbeing Base and Support for Learning, which is massive. And we have meetings every week to talk about young people, but I suppose the young people that I'm working with are the most complex in terms of additional support needs and learning disabilities. Does that make sense?
Actually, yeah, and I think, yes, and maybe that was clear as well on Ian's slides, and so maybe if you could share those slides afterwards, I think that would be really helpful for people to see, because I think this is quite new for a lot of people, how these things are organised, and I think it has evolved quite a lot recently, and I think it's something that a lot of parents may not be quite aware of how it's set up, maybe how, and for some people obviously they are channeled towards you, so you know who you're going to be working with, but for other pupils who may not be quite sure, or how parents might not be quite sure, that they think that they might need support, they might just need to how they access that. And I think
absolutely
that would be helpful to hear.
Yeah, and also to say that a lot of the young people that are referred to me, they're referred from primary school, so that we already know that they have additional or complex needs, but it's not fixed. So some people may not have been picked up in the primary school. They may not have been picked up from wherever they've come from, because we also have young people who are displaced from other countries. We have refugees, we have young people with EL needs, we have trauma, we have lots of things. But we really work together as a team to see, right, who can do what, and it's not just me working with these young people, it's mainstream teachers, it's the Wellbeing Base, it's Support for Learning, and we work as a team to say, right, I can do this, What can you do? So it's about us working as a team.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
No problem.
I think we have a few questions that maybe are relevant at this point, and I'm just sort of seeing the first one that's come in here. Maybe you can see it as well, Anna. It says, "Hi Anna, do you have any experience using the neurosequential approach to regulation for your students? Many thanks."
Oh gosh, I don't see that.
It's just at
so
the
you're
bottom of the Q&A, but
yeah, I've not. So where would I get? Oh, sorry, I'm going to go into Q&A. Sorry about that.
So it's the last question we've been asked about, yes, whether you have experience using the neurosequential approach in your work.
So it's just, I've gone into live event Q&A and I have no new questions, but I don't have experience in that, but I can tell you what I do have experience in. So I'm CERTS trained, I'm CAMS trained, I'm emotion talks trained, I'm a qualified counsellor for young people. I'm a primary school teacher with a first class honours degree. I've been a transition development officer. I've been a literacy and dyslexia support teacher. So, and I do have 25 years experience. I have a lot of experience in board maker and total communication, which is a lot of the things that I suspect you're talking about. I'm running groups for neurodivergent young people. I'm nurture trained.
Fantastic. No, I think it just maybe somebody has a particular question that they're interested to know about.
I'm sorry about that.
Thing,
but
that's fine. I mean,
I'm not seeing it, but I hope that. Wait, hi Anna, do you have any? I'm seeing it now. Oh, sorry, I'm seeing it now. I don't know what I said there. So, neurosequential approach to regulation. So, what I use is zones for regulation, which I suspect is very, very typical, very similar to what you're talking about. So it's that, are you in the red zone? Are you angry? Are you in the blue zone? Are you feeling sad or depressed? Are you in the green zone? Are you ready to learn? Are you ready to go? Are you a bit, So I suspect it's very similar, but I am trained in zones for regulation and emotion talks. So I hope that answers your question, but I'm happy to learn about the neurosequential approach if it's different.
Thank you. I mean, whoever posted the question, if you want to comment again or add to your original comment, then we can certainly pass that to Anna either before or after this meeting or during the meeting. That would be great. Thank you so much, Anna, for that. That's really helpful. There was another question, I think it sort of speaks to Ian, and maybe you'd know, is sort of really an information question. It says, what is support for learning in Darach? So I don't know whether you can comment on how it's managed, how support for learning is managed for pupils that spend their time majoritively in Darach.
Yeah, thank you, Hilary. So I think, and for those who may have missed it at the start, there's a team around every child that has access to support. One of the communities, I know there's Darach, the campus, but there's one of the communities is called Darach, and there's a support for learning teacher, Miss Moreno, who's specifically assigned to the Darach community. So that would cover an awful lot of the pupils who would access Darach. But if we've also got a wellbeing hub and a support for learning room down in Darach as well. So there's facilities there. And Rob, our support for learning leader, if there was requests for, let's say, PSAs to support in Darach with certain classes, then it would be the same process as if it was up at the other campus, in terms of asking Rob and the team if they could get particular support with either with an individual child or within a class setting. So it's pretty much the same process. Darach is just as part of the James Gillespie's umbrella, so it falls into the same process. But if it's the Darach community the person's asking for, then there is a specific teacher who would work with, a support for learning teacher who would work with youngsters in the Darach community.
I'm not sure. So the Darach in the question has been spelt as in Darach down the road, Darach.
The place.
So maybe the place rather than Darach, the other spelling, which I didn't realise you had two Darachs. So that's, I've learned something. So maybe could you say a little about the support for learning within the Darach community as well as the place, the Darach?
So just with the place, so there's a support for learning base down there.
Yes.
There's also opportunities for all the classes to ask for additional support from Support for Learning to support classes in Darwick. So that's the place. In terms of the community, where you'll have a deputy head teacher, you'll have Mr. Alexander as the pupil support leader and Miss Moreno, who's the Support for Learning teacher. The parent could get in touch with any of those three to say, my child's in the Darwick community and we would like some additional support with learning, or just have a conversation about it, and that would be their way of finding out more, making sure the provisions are put in place. So there's possibilities for Darwick the place and Darwick the community.
Brilliant, thanks so much, Eunice. I hadn't realised that must be a confusion. That maybe I'm the only one, but I am confused. I was confused. I'm now clear. So thank you so much for that. That's really helpful. There are a number of other questions here that I think go to that are relevant to health and well-being, but they're sort of centred around sort of issues with toilets in the school, which I think we won't cover now. We will leave that to the Q&A that happens towards the end, because I appreciate that's not your although it's part of this, it's not your particular responsibility. So I think we will leave those. I don't see any other questions that have been asked that are particularly relevant at this point to yourself, Ian, and to Anna, but thank you so much for coming to talk to us about the work that you're doing and how people can sort of get in touch and how they can access the wonderful services that you provide. It is really wonderful to hear your enthusiasm and your passion for what you're doing and for the nurture you have for the pupils at the school. So thank you very much for your time and for telling us about that. So you are very welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting, obviously, but equally, I totally understand if you have other places you need to be. So thank you so much. Yes, Kate says thank you very much. So,
thank you for the opportunity. Appreciate it. And if there's any questions that come up retrospectively, happy to answer them if we're not here.
Okay, no, that's really helpful. Thank you. We'll pass any other questions that we do get in the Q&A if you're no longer with us. We'll pass them on to you afterwards. Thank you so much. Okay, so I will move now to the next part of the meeting. And I think this is, I think Neil has a statement to read out about the issues that have been brought up and that some of you will have seen in the media about the former teacher at the school. So Neil, is that something that you want to do, and then Tracy? So welcome to Tracy Urquhart, who's joined us from City of Edinburgh Council. So welcome, Tracy. Thank you so much for your time. I'll let Neil read out the statement if that's the most appropriate, and then Tracy, if you have any comment to add following Neil's comments, then we'll pass on to you after that. So we'll leave it to Neil. Thank you so much. Neil, I think you are live now.
Yep,
hopefully we can hear you.
Great. Thanks, Hilary. Just trying to make sure I was unmuted. Good evening, everybody, and lovely to be here again this evening. So just as Hilary said, you may have been aware that I've had some questions about a former James Gillespie's high school teacher and some criminal activity that this individual has been convicted of in Kirkwood Sheriff Court, with sentencing due to take place next month. If you've read any of that information, I appreciate that will have been alarming to read about the nature of the crimes for which this individual has been convicted, and I'm sorry that we haven't addressed this with you sooner. Personally, I'm shocked and angry that this person was ever part of our school community and has been within our school. I want to reassure the school community that the safety and well-being of our young people is our #1 priority. In my role as head teacher, protecting and shielding our young people is absolutely paramount. In addition to this, we have clear safeguarding measures and child protection processes, and we regularly review and update these where required. Support is available for any pupil who is upset, concerned, and that includes from our team that you've heard about this evening and our pastoral care team, which is our pupil support leaders, guidance teachers, if you're old school, and school counsellors, and the wider teaching staff are very aware of that and know how to support our young people, as Ian has detailed to you this evening. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have on this via email, so please do get in touch. And again, I will be sharing this update with our broader school community tomorrow for the benefit of any parents or carers who haven't been able to join us this evening. And that's me in regards to that at present, Hilary.
Thanks so much, Neil, for that. There haven't actually been any questions at this point, so I won't pass anything back to you. But Tracy, if you had any comments that you would like to add, following up on Neil's comments there, I think, yes, you're live now, so thank you.
Okay. Can you hear me okay? Lovely. It's just to follow on from Neil's sentiments. Obviously, we need to be careful what we say in terms of legally, because this is obviously sentencing still to take place. But just to echo what Neil said, the safety of young people at Gillespie's is a priority. We want to reassure everybody of that. And you've heard, I think, really appropriately from Ian and his team tonight about the wide range of supports that are available. And if there is anything that we can support with in relation to this matter, but obviously anything else, then, you know, please let us know. That's sort of from in the school, but also from the wider council, to reassure parents that the young people at Gillespie's are safe, and we're taking this really seriously, and we want to reassure people the best that we can within the limitations of what we're allowed to share and speak about. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Tracy, for that. I mean, I think some of the questions that have been sort of addressed from parents is sort of to what point will you be able to share how or what led to a teacher being able to come to the school with a history that obviously wasn't picked up at the time, but just to understand that the checks that are carried out, that, as you say, that are there to keep our young people safe. And I think there are questions there about how we ended up at where we were, and what learning there will be, and if things are going to be, to understand how we got to that, but also what's going to how that will be taken forward so that we don't end up there again. I don't know whether you're able to comment on that at this point, but I think as a parent council would be very keen to know a little bit more about why we got to where we were and what happens next.
Yeah, Hilary, I think that's a fair question, and certainly there will be learning from this in terms of reflecting. We do have the PVG process, but obviously in this case, that's not picked up perhaps things it should have. So there will be an investigation at authority level to look at how that's happened and unpick that. And I can speak to obviously senior managers and get your response to exactly what that will look like, and obviously what we'll be able to share with you. I can come back with that.
Yeah, I think that's really helpful for that, Tracy. Thank you for that. I think we would be very keen to know what the next steps are from on the council side, and to know, you know, what will be shared back to the parents and pupils at the school as to what's happening there. So I appreciate that this is obviously it's an ongoing situation, and so you're not able to share fully, and I totally understand that. But I think once we've got to moved on a little, if we can hear a little bit more about what the next steps are, I think people would feel informed, but also hopefully reassured to some extent about what will happen. I am noticing actually there will be more questions that have been put up. So just to sort of comment on some of the things that are in the Q&A at the moment, I would say some people can read this anyway for themselves, but there's a comment here to say thank you for your carefully worded statement. It says, can you please specify how the pupils will be updated in a way that makes sense to them? So I think maybe that's a question for Neil, if you're able to sort of say, yeah, how just a little bit about how you intend to sort of discuss this with pupils in the school.
Yeah, thanks, Hilary. I think it's a bit like the sensitive situations that we've had to deal with since Christmas time, with losing 2 members of staff and trying to be there to support and make sure we communicate with our young people. And obviously, a limited number of young people will have come into contact with this former teacher, so it's about reviewing that and linking in with the young people, and we'll communicate with them in an appropriate way. Obviously we don't want to put that out in a general communication to them by email, so we're just pulling that together and how we do that and share that with them in an appropriate way.
Thank you. And I think following on from that, there's a comment that says, will the school talk to the pupils about this case in particular, but also, I guess, how to act if this circumstance, heaven forbid that it doesn't, but how in these circumstances, should they ever find themselves in it? Again, whether they're concerned for their safety or they're just exposed to things that they shouldn't be. So again, I presume that you'll comment on that, but it'd be good to hear your thoughts as well here.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's about making sure that we're always looking to educate our young people and support them and give them the right channels for support, so that they have a clear understanding of how to deal with situations. And obviously we have our welfare concern forms, and any young person revisited in terms of our PSE programme and supporting young people to make sure that they know what the channels of support are, what's there, what's available to support them, to deal with any situations, and to make sure that they feel they are able to come forward with any issues or any concerns that they have had. And that's very clear and very important for us, because we need to be open, transparent, and as we said before, the safeguarding of our young people is absolutely our #1 priority.
Thank you. Somebody has commented, and I think it will not be something that missed by many, but to someone who said, isn't it a flaw in the PVG process that it only looks at previously discovered offending? And I guess that's something that will come up as maybe as part of these discussions. I mean, I appreciate that you can only know about what you're told about, and that's difficult, but I mean, it obviously is a source of significant concern in this case. But yeah, so I don't.
Yeah, I think as Tracy said, that's certainly something that we'll link in with the senior officers at the centre in terms of that process. And we obviously have the PVG, and that's absolutely right. It's only as valid as the moment that the PVG happens. And we also have references that we obtain from employers, and that's always the most recent school that a teacher has worked in. So yeah, hopefully will give us the most up-to-date information in terms of that person as well.
Yeah, thank you. I think, as has been commented already, there's a lot to be investigated here, and this is possibly, we're not at that point yet, given that the person is still to be sentenced. So I guess once that has happened, it'll be clearer, and you'll be able to the investigations. And I think Parent Council will be keen to keep in touch with what's happening, just because of what's happened in the school for our young people. But thank you. I don't see any more questions in particular that relate to this at this point. If Anna and Ian are still here, a question has come in at this point, or more of a comment, but just to sort of feed back to you, that someone has said, please can a special care be taken when deciding when it is suitable for some SNUG students to join mainstream classes? And I'm sure that always does happen, but I guess maybe if you have any comment on that process, but also any interactions that you have before that a pupil is sort of asked to rejoin mainstream teaching.
Yep. Thank you, Hilary, and thank you for the question. Absolutely fair question, and there's a lot of thought that goes into whichever support we sort of tap into. Of all the things I said about, is it Wellbeing Hub, is it SNUG, is it just support for learning, is it the pupil support team, the community team? So there's a team around every child essentially, and any sort of inclusion into mainstream classes from the SNUG is not taken in isolation, and that'll be part of the team, including the parents' voice in terms of the young person's parents' voice, the staff feedback, the people who work closely with the young person who's in the SNUG, perhaps Anna's and the team's opinions, and just what can be put in place, whether we're doing risk management plans to ensure that if they are going into a particular class, that we've thought about everything. So just to reassure members of the audience that there is a lot of thought and care taken into what happens, and a support's put in. So I don't know if you want to add anything there, Anna, or does that cover it?
I think, Anna, if you want to come in, yes, please add your comments.
Hi there. Sorry, I ran there for a glass of water, but I just heard my name there quickly. So can you repeat the question, because it doesn't seem to be coming up in my chat. But in terms of children being re-included into class, was that correct?
It was maybe, Anna, can you hear me? Yeah. It's maybe young people who you're working with closely in the SNUG, and then if we're considering them to be in some of the mainstream classes, that due care and consideration is taken, and looking at possibly the impact on the others. I think that's the angle of the question.
Absolutely. So obviously I'm not allowed to talk about named children, but we had a situation recently where we felt the young person could be a potential danger to other pupils, so they no longer go to that class, and we are supporting them within the SNUG until they are able to be controlled, and all young people are safe, because obviously our that child has rights, but all young people have rights. So our we have a right to safeguard all young people and also all of our staff. So if we feel that person is not safe, then we will withdraw them from mainstream classes and have done so. And we will re-include them when we feel they are able and supported. And if we feel that our young people are in any danger at all, they will not be in class.
Can I maybe just add to that briefly? When we talked about Inclusion X, we have a weekly meeting that I chair on a Thursday, and that's from representatives from Support for Learning, from the SNUG, from the Wellbeing Hub, and we look at things exactly like this. So if there's a thought that someone might be going into a mainstream class, then, as I say, the next stage would be the team around that young person to agree and have a clear, robust plan. So I just want to reassure the person who asked the question that these decisions aren't taken lightly and are kept under, we monitor them and review them, and if things change, as Anna says, we will adapt. But yeah, a lot of thought and planning goes into it in the first place.
Fantastic, thank you so much for your thoughts there. That's really helpful. I don't see any other questions that have come up that are relating back to sort of the health and wellbeing and Inclusion X activities. So I think you can you can retire once more, but thank you so much for staying around. That was really helpful that you were able to answer those questions, so thank you. I think at this point we will probably, I think there are no more comments. I mean, well, there was another comment about PVG and the importance of getting that right in relation to the comments that Neil and Tracy have made. That's not obviously something that's in control there. I mean, I will comment that there are new rules actually about sort of PVGs, even for parent councils, members of parent councils, and so I think there's clearly a lot of attention is being paid to keeping people safe, but clearly it doesn't always. It isn't always as effective as it needs to be. I'll just check if there's another question has come in, which we will address, but not at this point. So again, so Tracy, I think thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate your time, and we're really grateful. At this point, possibly you're again, if you're welcome to stay around, but we will hopefully move on now. So we'll, if you feel that you have other places to be, you're very, very welcome, obviously, to do that. I will reshare my screen at this point. Just to sort of go through now the Parent Council update with you. I hope I'm on the correct bit. Yes, here I am. So we're back where we were. So yes, again, thank you so much to Ian and to Anna for their comments. It was really helpful. And again, I think they have put their email address, and Anna's put her email address in the Q&A, so you obviously can pick that up. So if you have any comments that you want to pick up with them, please do feel free to email them and start those conversations. Okay, so yes, I didn't introduce myself, I forgot. I'm Hilary Snaith, and so I'm the co-chair along with my colleague Tiziana Baschiani, who is not able to be with us. This is just to remind you of the people that are office bearers of the Parent Council, and just to be just so you know who we are, and to share that you may know some of us or not, but these are our current members for this year. So again, you are, I'm sure, aware, or hopefully are aware, that we share quite a lot of information about the work that the Parent Council does on our website, and I put the address there. It is on all the slides. Minutes of in-person meetings are shared there. Oh, my lights have just gone bright for some reason, I'm not quite sure why. But also we have recordings of all the online meetings are available, so do check those out if you want to go back. And this meeting is being recorded, so we will be able to post a link to that recording shortly, hopefully in time for the Friday newsletter. So if you want to go back and listen to anything again, you will be able to. So please do check out the website for other information. So just to the update for this meeting. First of all, the Parent Council finances. We do have a duty as a Parent Council to make a written report available on our finances. So that is again on our website. So if you are interested to see those reports, they are under there under the documents section, and it says finance report. So we do put our information there. Just to update that we did receive, we said previously, the allocation from the City of Edinburgh Council for running of the parent council, so that's about £1,300, and that covers things like our Teams licences, pays for hosting of our website. And we had been chasing the allocation for the 2023-24 because unfortunately the paperwork hadn't come through correctly for that, so we weren't able to apply for those funds. But we had hoped that we could retrospectively be awarded that. Unfortunately, we have now found, and thanks to Steve Burgess, one of our councillors who looked into this for us, those funds are no longer available. We've moved into the subsequent financial year, and those funds are not going to come to us now. So that is a shame, because a lot of the funds that we don't spend from our allocation goes to the Small Sums Fund, which supports projects in the school. But unfortunately, we've lost out on the £1,200, but we will be paying very close attention in future to make sure that we apply for our allocation in a timely fashion, so that we do not suffer any subsequent loss of funds. So that's just an update where we are there. So just to comment on the Small Sums Fund applications by teachers for projects, so they have now all been received by the Parent Council. The total of £5,401 was requested by teachers for different projects. We have £3,759 available, so we will not be able to fund all of those projects. So we are in the process of preparing to assess all the applications and decide which are suitable for funding. We will likely discuss with the James Gillespie's High School Trust, who also support projects in the school, if they would be able to support those that we aren't, or to support some of those that the Parent Council can't provide funds for. That's ongoing, and we will update you at the next meeting of the Parent Council in June as to how that went. In terms of other budgets that come into the school, as you know, hopefully those of you who are getting tickets for the Spring Fling that and other school events that are ticketed with a cost, that the school adds £1.50 to those tickets, which pays for your refreshment of tea and coffee and biscuits at the meeting, at the event, which comes straight to the any excess from that comes to the Parent Council, and we add that into our Small Sums Fund. So please do come to the Spring Fling, obviously, next Tuesday, and please do enjoy tea and coffee with your free ticket once you do that, or your free tea and coffee with your ticket when you're at the event. And just to say that our closing balance, there was no money in or out, so it's the same at the beginning and the end, which was £2,419, and also the parent pay balance that we have currently sits at £2,004.24. So that's where we are with budget wise. In terms of activities that the Parent Council has been involved in since the last meeting, you may recall that there was an issue with the publication of the SQA higher timetable, which had higher English and higher psychology were both scheduled to happen on the 7th of May. As there are so many pupils at Gillespie's who take that combination of subjects, that was a significant impact on pupils at Gillespie's. And so the Parent Council contacted a range of decision makers about this clash and about possibilities of changing that timetabling, and we were really pleased to see on the 3rd of February that higher psychology was moved to the 25th of April and higher English was kept on the 7th of May. So that separated those two subjects out, which we're obviously delighted for our pupils, that they no longer have to sit the exams on the same day, but also the information that there were other changes made across the SQA timetable, and that gave a 47% drop in across all subjects where there were co-scheduled exams. So, I mean, it obviously was benefited pupils at Gillespie's, particularly the English and psychology clash. But I mean, it's fantastic to see that the re-evaluation of the timetable also a 47% drop in other co-scheduled exams. So there was benefits for many pupils across Scotland. So we were very pleased for all our young people that was the outcome of the rescheduling process. The other issue that we've obviously been interested in is about capacity and rising roles at the school. This is not a new topic. It has been a problem since my children were in primary school, and my youngest is now in S5. So this has been an issue for a very long time. There was an assessment, so just reporting back on what we said in January at our meeting, that there had been a meeting of the Education, Children and Families Committee in November, where they had looked at capacities across all primary and high schools across Edinburgh, to look at what the decided capacity was going to be. Some schools, it wasn't clear that the capacity was, the decided capacity was going to be suitable, and Gillespie's was one of those. And in particular, then the Parent Council wrote to our councillors, noting the impact that the sheer volume of pupils in the school is having, and there's across a number of different areas, both either in streaming of subjects, but also just in space for study, in dining space, problems in general, especially for pupils with additional support needs, that being in a busy, noisy school is having just on overall enjoyment and engagement with learning. And we asked again that the council considers the suitability, not just a physical classroom numbers, but how the school estate and how suitable it is to support learning for all children. So we sent that and received sort of positive responses about measures that may be put in place to help. And the council had suggested after the November meeting that they would revisit the capacity issue at the meeting, which actually happened. The Education, Children, Families Committee met this morning, and so in advance of that meeting for this morning, and they had produced another report, which sort of again looked at capacity and suitability. But we were quite disappointed to read that it said the suitability cannot form part of an objective and consistent capacity assessment. So I think our reading of that was that it is difficult to do it objectively, but it doesn't mean that it shouldn't be done because it's difficult, and that it's important. And we were concerned that this sort of seemed to suggest that possibly suitability was not going to be a factor in how capacity was determined. So again, so it was also proposed in that how Gillespie's would manage the space that they would need is to repurpose some other space, which is going to be what was the P7 annex at James Gillespie's primary school. So you'll probably be aware that at the primary school they had been a 3-stream school and they are now a 2-stream school, so they don't need as much of the classroom space as they once had. And so the P7 annex, for those who don't know, was so there are 2 annexes at the primary school, and this is the first of the annexes that were built, and so that's apparently going to be repurposed, and I think Neil will have some more comment about what that is going to look like. But that's a proposal. That'll be the new space that the high school gets. It's not huge, but that's a proposal. And as you can see from the numbers that I put on the slide here, these are the proposed capacities and the proposed role at the school. So currently the role is at 1765. The capacity has been set at 1855, and yet with a role of 1765 we're already really full. And the capacity is going to go up to 1910 pupils by the 27-28, but even by next year we will already be above the capacity that is being proposed for Gillespie's, I presume, even with the repurposed space. So this is a serious source of concern to us. So in response, we wrote a deputation to the Education and Children and Families Committee, calling on them to think about how they were going to manage the space, and especially thinking about the suitability of space when determining the capacity for the high school. The meeting was this morning. Kirsten, our treasurer, had enormous fortitude to attend the whole meeting. Apparently it was incredibly long, and it took a very long time to get to the discussion of capacity. The council was keen to emphasise the importance of consistency with the approach to capacity, so didn't really take on board from what she said the suitability argument. So this is, again, not ideal. Questions were asked about the suitability of spaces and why this wasn't covered in the report. And we need to wait, I think, till more information is available about the response that was given to those questions. So I think, although we have tried very hard to press to have a sufficient space within the school, I think what we're going to get is the P7 annex at the primary school. And by the sound of it, at this point, there are no other options being proposed. So we need to think about, we need to hear more detail about what that will look like, and what if any action can be taken. So we need a little more information, but that is where we are with the capacity and rising roles currently. Okay, other recent issues, and I always thank you so much to Neil and all of the senior leadership team and teachers at the school, because they're always very engaged with our questions and give very helpful responses to the questions that are posed. part of that was, you may recall that there were to have been an Education Scotland inspection at the school in February. That was obviously postponed, but in advance of that, members of the Parent Council office bearers met and to discuss the key points that we felt might be helpful in terms of what the inspectors might be looking for, and the feedback that we had as a Parent Council. And we shared that with Neil and for reflection by the school. We continue to discuss the issues of communications with parents, and I see there are questions that have come in the Q&A this evening about how the school communicates with parents. So I think that is possibly the biggest challenge that we face in terms of sort of engaging with parents. It is a challenge for everybody, and it's something that I think we will continue to work with the school to try and improve how that happens. One of the issues that came up was about some of the recent surveys that pupils have been asked to take part in the school, and I understand, and Neil may comment on this, that although surveys have up until now been opt out, so you take part unless your parent asks you not to, that some of these surveys now will be opt in. So Neil will be able to comment a little on that. I know that a number of people have responded to us about the new attainment reports. I think they've been challenging. People have not found them easy to interpret, or they've not had the information that they expected. This was also discussed at there's a City of Edinburgh Council meeting called the Consultative Committee with Parents, where various parent councils attend. This was discussed at length at that meeting, and I think the person who was involved in sort of in the assessment setup, the actual system that is used, was discussing how it's working, has taken on board some of the feedback about the challenges that parents are having in accessing that and engaging with the reports that are being produced. So I think there may be some changes, and Neil may have more information to share about that, but I think it has been something that we know parents have found difficult, and we're trying to sort of understand how things may improve or be changed in future. Just to finish up quickly, we commented at the last Parent Council meeting that people want to do fundraising for things in the school, in particular around the books that are available in English classes. And so Neil worked with the English faculty to ask them what they would find the most useful. And Sophia Kirkwood had produced a sort of a proposal for creating reading circles for the S1 and S2 pupils, and that the Parent Council could hopefully support fundraising to provide books for those reading circles. So we just recently got the list of the books that they're asking for, and so we will be coming out to the parent body with ideas about how they might want to, if they do want to support providing those books for those classes. We've got a whole reading list among different genre that pupils can come together and read. So we'll be getting back in touch with you more about that, but I think that does look like something that we hopefully will be able to support. And lastly, just to say, we were in touch with the Skills Development Scotland officer at the school, who asked us to share information about the work that they're doing. There's been some information about apprenticeships, there's been information about getting pupils into engineering, the activities that they've been running. I'm sure that pupils have shared those activities at school, but we're also sharing them on the Parent Council website. So if you want to go and find out more about the opportunities offered through those Skills Development Scotland team at the school, then you can find that on our website. And also there's Connect, which is the body that supports parent councils across Scotland, is doing a travel survey currently, and just to highlight that they've got that open until the 10th of April. So if you're interested to respond to them about how you and your young person travels to school, please do respond to their survey, which again you can find, as I say, on the website. Lastly, the next meeting of the Parent Council is the 4th of June. It obviously is the last one of the year. It will be in person in the school, and we've no idea what will be on the agenda at this point. So but we will inform you obviously as we get closer to that, much nearer the time. Yes, and I say that's all there. So Duncan, that's the end of my comments. Duncan Bell was going to be able to join us to tell us a little bit more about what the JGH Trust is doing. Unfortunately, he hasn't received the minutes of their last meeting, so he's not going to say anything today. But just to say, we will. So this will be one thing that we pick back up on at our meeting. But basically, Duncan is the Parent Council's representative on the JGH Trust Committee. So so providing that sort of linkage between the work of the Trust and the work of the Parent Council, ensuring that information flows between the two of us and where the synergies might lie for our different activities. So we will hold Duncan in reserve, and we will hear from him when we meet next in the school. Okay, so now it's going to Neil and his comments. So I haven't been able to see the Q&A at this point, so we will pick any questions you might have about anything that we've been doing up after Neil has made his comments. Okay, I hope I can't see anything there. Where we are? Yes, brilliant. Neil, thank you.
That's great. Thanks, Hilary, and thanks for your update. Appreciate your time this evening, as always. So a few things to cover off this evening. If I can start with English text, I know via Kirkwood and Susie Sawyers, who are acting curriculum leaders for our English faculty, have pulled together a proposal and shared all of that information with the Parent Council, and I know a lot of that focus in those texts is in around building the capacity and literacy in terms of our broad general education, so S1, 2 and 3, and I know through further discussions with the Parent Council I'm going to go back and speak to them as well about the senior phase, so our pupils in 4th, 5th and 6th year, and about how we can work with the Parent Council to support with that. As Hilary alluded to, we were due to be inspected in February. Unfortunately, due to the sad passing of 2 members of staff, the decision was taken by the inspection team to postpone the inspection. At this moment in time, we don't know when the inspection will now take place. Normal procedure with the inspection is 3 weeks notice, and that will likely be the same going forward. However, as we enter into Easter time, and then after Easter with 4th, 5th and 6th year students being on SQA exam diet, and then into a new timetable in June, the likelihood is that the inspection would take place after the summer. But as soon as I have any communication or news, I'll share that with the parent and carers and the wider school community, so as everybody is fully aware. The likelihood is it will be the similar type of process again, where we'll be seeking the support of the Parent Council and the wider parent carer body in terms of surveys, because that's a huge bit of data gathering that the inspection team would do ahead of any inspection, to get an understanding and to begin to look at whether we know our school well and we know which aspects we're strong in and which aspects we need to continue to work on. But as I say, as soon as I have more information in and around that, then I will absolutely share that with you. In regards to reporting, we have introduced, not just within James Gillespie's High School, but across the whole authority, a new tracking, monitoring and reporting system, and that's been implemented not just into secondary schools this year, but also into our primary schools, and that will hopefully going forward give us a much more robust system. I know there's been a lot of feedback which we have also subsequently fed back into the central team in regards to what is working and what we need to look at and how we need to make the system work more effectively for us to have those open communications and to allow parents and carers to see the progress of their young people on a more regular basis. So we'll continue to work with the central team and work within our own setting to make sure that we look at that. Part of that will be meeting with a group from the staff who look at what's called the working time agreement, and that links into both in terms of the additional hours that teachers do above their contact time and across the school year, so factors in reporting and also parents' evening and meetings, and again looking at that and reviewing that. We're always keen to receive feedback about what's working well with the parents' evening and what's not, and I know Mr. Cotter's worked hard to try and make it as accessible for everybody, and I understand that with the online system it's not perfect, but again it's about learning from processes that we have in place, receiving the feedback about what is working for parents and carers and what we need to do to try and amend and take forward. So we'll continue to do that. We'll do that within the agreement of the time that we have across the school year with the teachers, and try and get that to be as effective as possible. Hilary touched on surveys, and we're engaging with Glasgow University in our Equally Safe at Schools project, which is about looking at how we support our young people to create a safe environment within school, to make our young people feel safe at school, and to listen to them, and for their voice to be very powerful in terms of how we take the school forward. It's also wider than that. It's about how they feel safe in their own community, and the community around about the school, and working with them. And as part of that, as Hilary alluded to, there was the opt-in and opt-out discussion that was had, and again we've linked in with senior officers at the council. So anything in terms of surveys going forward will always be an opt-in for our young people, where parents and carers will need to give the opt-in for them to be able to participate, because again, coming back to our safeguarding, and I think there's been a lot of awareness in the media recently in and around surveys and how that data is used in future years. So again, we want to safeguard our young people and make sure that they're only opting into something that they are fully understanding of, and parents and carers are fully understanding of, and they're able to give that full support to make sure that we can take the community forward, and we're providing a safe environment for our young people. Our short life working groups, I've met with the mobile group a couple of Tuesdays ago, which was really positive, really helpful meeting, and again we're going to be meeting shortly after the Easter holiday in terms of trying to take forward that policy that we have and linking in with our young people for their input as well. And our communications group have made progress, and I appreciate they maybe haven't linked in with the parents quite in the way that we would have hoped. So I've been following up with that and trying to seek that involvement of parents in the process, because we need to have the parental input and carer input in terms of our communication process and what is working, what is not working, and again, what can we do better, because absolutely we want to make sure that we work in partnership with all our parents and carers. I know Mrs Stewart, Deputy Head Teacher, has been taking forward the digital literacy policy and has met with parental group last Friday, and that seemed to be a very positive follow-up meeting to a couple that had happened previously. And Mrs Stewart's also taking forward our homework policy, so again trying to move that forward so that we have that and involve parents and carers in that process too. Some good news, we have an active school coordinator who has been appointed. It is Lorraine Byrne, and Lorraine will take up post on the 22nd of April, and she's going to be going around all of our learning community, which is made up of all the primary schools within our James Gillespie's catchment, and I know she's coming in to meet with myself and Ian Porter on Monday the 28th of April, and hopefully Lorraine will be able to support us as she arrives at the school in terms of our Gillespie Games, which is part of our transition for our primary schools, but also to ensure that our active school programme is up and running and as strong as it can be to support all of our young people and being physically active and engaged. And from, you'll maybe remember from previous parent council meetings where we've shared about the approach that Sport Scotland and active schools are now taking, is about a real focus on those from the most deprived areas and supporting young people to make sure they have free access to physical activity. We also have within our school a large number of young people who want to compete in sport, and that has been taken forward by our wonderful physical education department, and lots of real success there across a range of different sports, and the membership for that we'll be reviewing as we come towards the end of the academic year in terms of looking towards next year. Obviously some of the sports are more expensive, if you like, in terms of the costs for refereeing, transport. We've had an incredibly successful season with basketball this year, for example. All three of the girls' teams got to the Scottish Cup finals, two of them becoming Scottish champions. all three of the boys teams got to the Scottish Cup semi-finals, and the semi-finals have been all over the country in terms of travelling and competing, which is wonderful, and just so proud and delighted for our young people to have had these opportunities, but also to become Scottish champions in our S1 girls basketball team. And Open Girls is absolutely fantastic, and again, you know, builds on the success across a whole range of sports that we've had over the last recent years. So again, really positive story to have Lorraine starting with us, and again, we look forward to hopefully welcoming her to our Parent Council meeting in the near future. In terms of the capacity engagement, we're working with officers from the council and looking at our building. What is there that we can possibly do? The real area of concern for us is in and around the practical spaces that we have in terms of subjects such as food and health technology or craft and design technology, and being able to support the uptake that we have for our young people. These subjects continue to be very popular. There's a strong uptake in coursing, both at the end of second year as young people choose their qualifications to take them through to the end of fourth year, but then also into fifth and sixth year. So again, part of the proposal, as was in the Education Committee meeting today, was looking at one of the buildings in the James Gillespie's primary school campus, which is a facility for effectively 3 computing classrooms, and trying to reconfigure on our ground floor of our Malala building for craft and design technology and food and health technology, to keep those classroom spaces located within the same area, and again to be able to move all of our computing science from our main campus into one building. So again, we've been working with officers, scoping out the possibility of any works that would be required, the scoping of what it would be required to ensure we have the capacity to cope with about 100 computers in that building, and the network, and how that operation would run in terms of pupils moving between ourselves and James Gillespie's primary school. We work closely with the senior team at the primary school, and again want to make sure that we have good relationships there, and the young people are able to come and move between those campuses. That's the main focus at the moment, and again trying to work with officers in terms of a timeline. Mrs. O'Brien is our deputy head who has responsibility for curriculum, timetable and coursing. She's currently working hard in terms of the coursing for our young people and the timetable to start on the 2nd of June. So again, we really need to make sure we're going to have these facilities in place to be able to deliver the curriculum to our young people. And so conversations continuing with officers at the centre to try and make sure that timeline's in place. And again, once I've got really firm information to share with you, I would be sharing that with you through my Friday update or a further communication to make sure that we share that with the wider parent and carer body. Last thing before I move on to some other bits of good news, just following up in terms of some questions in and around our school environment, and I touched about the work we're doing with our young people and working with staff to try and review and look at our school environment to make sure that it's as warm and as welcoming for all of our young people as possible. I know we continue to have ongoing issues in terms of toilets, and generally I'm continuing to have a lot of discussions with our facilities management colleagues and around the level of cleaning that takes place and the quality of the materials that are used, to make sure that these are safe spaces for our young people, that make our young people feel safe and welcomed and able to access and use these facilities throughout the school day. And again, trying to make sure that the support we were offered in terms of trying to put in some recess walls to protect the hand washing areas and give a bit more privacy in terms of the toilets, without making these areas feel as if they're not safe for young people, continuing to push to get that to happen, and to make sure that is there in place. But also in terms of our behaviour, and you've obviously heard Anna and Ian talking this evening about our young people and the range of young people we have across our school community and how we manage and work with them. We make sure we have regular assemblies with our young people, and at the start of every assembly we really focus on our expectations, our school values of respect, kindness, integrity, inclusion and high expectations. But in every classroom we also have our expectations in terms of what young people should be expected to be working towards, and we really focus that around what is called our ready, respectful and safe priorities, and making sure that young people are aware of that. We've also shared through those assemblies and through PSE with our guidance teams and around the expectations, but then also what the stage management is, staged intervention is with young people if their behaviours are not what we would hope them to be. And we also have support, and we work closely with our curriculum leaders, our staff, constantly revisiting and looking at that on a regular basis. We've been doing a real focus on learning and teaching this year, and working with colleagues from the Edinburgh Learns team in terms of engaging and ensuring our young people are part of their education. When we do have situations, unfortunately, where behaviour is not what we would expect it to be, then it is about linking in with the young people, about having appropriate consequences, about linking in with their parents and carers and engaging with them, and trying to put appropriate supports in place. And again, about that education and about inclusion and the rights of everybody being provided for, as Anna touched on, to make sure that the 19 or 20 other young people in a practical class, or 26 or 27 in an English class, for example, are not disrupted by the behaviours of others. And again, we have high expectations of our staff in terms of how they deliver the learning and teaching, and how they engage with young people and the relationships that are there, but also about how they support young people when there are situations which do arise when we're dealing with teenagers and young people. And again, it's about reinforcing with our young people that consequences will be in place, and although not every time we can always share about exactly what those consequences are, but it's about making sure that young people feel supported and feel valued and feel heard in terms of how we support them with that. We have shared all of our documentation through the school website, and again, that's on the school website. There's an information tab. Once you go into the information tab, you'll find there's what's called the visitor zone, and within there we have our policy documents, which you'll be able to see the school's policy in and around anti-bullying. We're currently reviewing that policy and looking to update and make sure that's in place for the start of the new academic session. We have our equalities policy there, our child protection policy, and the policy that's followed in terms of supporting and looking after all of our young people and safeguarding, as we've touched on already this evening. And then I suppose most importantly, our relationships, learning and behaviour policy, which really gives detailed information in and around the processes and that staged intervention to support our young people, the different pathways that our young people follow, and the supports that we work with our staff to make sure that young people feel safe, supported, and looked after within our classrooms and across our school community, whether that be at break or lunchtime, or if they're there participating in extracurricular activities as well. So hopefully that gives a bit of reassurance in and around the approaches that we're taking as a school. Always happy to engage and work with parents and carers and work in partnership. We want to make sure we get it right for every young person. When we do have bullying situations, there's a welfare concern form is passed to guidance teachers and community heads, who will follow up in regards of investigating that and following up and making sure we complete the circle with our young people, so as they know exactly what measures and steps have been taken. We'll implement restorative practices where that's appropriate and young people wish to engage with that. As I say, the engagement with parents and carers, and when it's a bullying incident, we also have to record that as such, and that's part of the system that we have in place in school. So trying to really make sure, and again, just trying to reinforce that point, that the well-being and the safeguarding of our young people is very, very important to us. Last couple of items from me for this evening, just a couple of bits of good news. We had our YPI final recently, and that's with our S3 young people, S4 young people, and this year the successful charity were the Sparkle Sisters from Vintage Vibes, which is the yard, and looking at across a different range of supports, and our young people working with the charities in their local community and winning £3,000 for the Vintage Vibes. So that was delighted, and they were absolutely delighted to receive that. The majority of that funding comes from the Wood Foundation, with a £500 contribution from each school that engages in the YPI, which is Youth Philanthropic Initiative, and real fantastic life skills for young people. We had some real success with our VEX V5 robotics team. They won in the Scottish round in January, and then during the February break they went down to down south to compete in the national finals. I think they were up against some real competition at the UK national championships, and given the team's only been together for a short time, and again taking a real philanthropic approach, they have had disco fundraisers and a whole range of different activities to raise funds to support not only their participation but also the equipment to be able to build the robots. So again, fantastic news, and well done to them. We also had quite a number of our young people competing at the European Youth Parliament debate and public speaking competition, and the event was held at Mary Erskine's in Edinburgh, and after 8 rounds of debate, our team were the strongest team of the day, and an absolute credit to the school. The judging panel were only able to compliment their performance and could really offer no tips for improvement, which is just quite incredible. So they went through to the national weekends of debates in the autumn, and they've also subsequently been selected to attend the European Youth Parliament International Forum, which is taking place in Istanbul, Turkey in June 2025. So again, just reinforcing what incredible commanding performances they had at the recent 2-day regional event in Glasgow. So a massive congratulations to all of them. And just finally, in terms of performing arts faculty success, so many fantastic, talented young people. We've had our Young Musician of the Year competition. We've had students performing at the City Chambers, at the Suraj Lal Awards, where we were also very fortunate that Miss Laura Jane Ingalls won the Teacher of the Year award in terms of equalities. So absolutely delighted and proud of her and the work that she does. But also we've had teams travelling to the Royal Conservatoire of Scotland in Glasgow to compete, and being successful in guitar ensembles, and even last night at the Edinburgh School ensembles in the Usher Hall. Incredible number of our young people who were involved in a lot of the performances. And that concludes my update for this evening, Hilary. Thank you.
Fantastic, Neil. That is a tour de force to get to that, and thank you so much. And so lovely to hear, among all the difficult things, that there's such wonderful things to celebrate as well at the school. And I think congratulations to the sporting people and the performers and the debaters. It's wonderful to hear how well people can thrive through obviously some challenging times in other contexts. So thank you so much for all of that. I think there are a number of questions, and I'm probably okay, somebody has posted something, so we'll publish it. I'm not quite sure what these comments for, but so there are a number of questions. So for people that are on the call and have got questions here, please do like the ones that are most relevant, because I will start at the bottom with the most liked, just so that we get through questions that are clearly of interest to people, because and I appreciate that we are, and as I predicted that we would be, we are close to 8:30, and so I think we'll probably, I think if I can work out, so Kate, if you're able, probably now we'll give a couple more minutes if there are any last minute questions to put in, but if you're able to close the Q&A shortly, that would be great, because I think we'll try to draw to a close soon-ish. But I think, so Neil, if it's okay with you, we'll just start at the bottom with the questions that are most liked, and we'll see how far we get in sort of the next sort of 10-15 minutes, well, 10 minutes or so. So the first question is about parent consultations, particularly for S5, and so the commenter says it was very unhelpful to have the very first face-to-face S5 parent consultation in February after the higher prelims. A one-liner in a tracking report pre-Christmas is not enough information for parents to direct and support pupils in their revision over Christmas to help them in their prelims. I do appreciate teachers are hectic and are doing a wonderful job, but more parent consultations or a more in-depth report pre-Christmas is required during this crucial school year. can you please consider this going forward? So I don't know what comments you would have, Neil, and maybe this fits in with some of the information you have about sort of how the assessment reports, tracking reports are going to be produced, but this is obviously an important issue.
Yeah, I think that kind of really reinforces the point I was making earlier about this transfer to a new system and the ability to allow parents and carers to be able to see on a regular basis how their young people are doing, and ideally that's what we should be able to do with this system, is for parents and carers to be able to log in pretty much at any time to be able to see where the young person's at and to have that update. But I also appreciate whether the comment in and around the consultation evenings. As I say, we absolutely are looking at that and reviewing that, but also in terms of the quality of the feedback that we share with parents and carers, and it's absolutely, we want to work in partnership with parents and carers. And another aspect to that, and I know Hilary, you and I have discussed this quite a lot over the last couple of years, is about having curriculum evenings at the start of the school year, either in June or August, where parents and carers can come in and we can really share about the contents of courses across a range of the different curricular areas and how we can support parents and carers to support their young people at home over the course of the year, not waiting until we get to prelim time, but also really reinforcing the quality of the feedback that we're giving, and that's something we're certainly going to look at and taken away very clearly as a senior team to look at with the working time agreement group in terms of time for reporting, time for consultation evenings.
Thank you. I mean, I think that is really helpful that you'd be able to take forward that the time that teachers have that they can give to reporting or the consultations, because I think this is an issue, and we've discussed this, as you say before, about it's something that comes up with all year groups. The need sort of for parents to have potentially longer to discuss with teachers. I mean, not all parents need it, but for those who do, I think it feels very restrictive sometimes. The limit that inevitably, because of time, is placed. So yeah, helpful to be discussing that, so thank you. So yes, we've done that question. I think you've also addressed this a little bit already about the toilet situation and the work that's ongoing. I mean, I think we can only reiterate from the questions that have been posed here that it is an ongoing issue, that I know the school's working hard to deal with it, but it's something that keeps coming up, and parents and pupils alike report just how difficult it is and how challenging people, and how that it's a continuing issue that we do need to address. So thank you for your comments.
Yeah, we're definitely going to keep working with the young people in regards to that as well, because obviously they're the ones that have to access and use the facilities on a daily basis. So through our pupil council and our pupil voice, it's really important we get their input and their feedback. And as I say, I know there has been a change in the facilities management team just in the last few weeks, and certainly the conversations I've been having with them in terms of the quality of the cleaning and the provision of cleanliness, not just that's done at the end of the school day or overnight, but also throughout the school day with the day ranger that we have in place. And I think I actually feel like we're being listened to a little bit better now, so hopefully we're going to see a more positive move in terms of our toilets. But again, in terms of the quality of locks, I know that's been a comment in the questions, is about the quality of the materials, is trying to make sure that the company who run and facility manage the building, that quality is there as well for young people.
Thanks, Neil. I mean, I appreciate this is a long and ongoing situation, but I mean, it's good to hear that the work that's being done, and hopefully eventually we'll get to a place that people feel more comfortable with it, with the situation they're in. This question again, as the next most liked question, has come up many times over the years, which is about uniform policy. And so the questioner says, my child reports that the pupil council is in favour of reinstating a uniform. I don't know if this is accurate or hearsay, but I personally feel strongly that the current policy should be revisited. And I don't know whether you can comment on to what extent that you're aware of these discussions within the school.
Yeah, I've certainly not had any feedback to me, but I can follow up Mr. Porter, who links in with the pupil council and the pupil voice. And again, if that's something that's coming through from the pupils, in terms of timing, Scottish Government have obviously released policy documentation recently, and there is a working group across City of Edinburgh that's looking at school uniform and the policy for school uniform. So in terms of timing, and looking at it. If that's something that people's in the people voice are feeling is there and is appropriate, then I think that's something we need to listen to. And as I say, at the end of the day, it's their school, and we want that school to reflect what they see as priorities. So again, absolutely be more than happy to look at that with them. So I'll link in with Mr. Porter and seek feedback to take that forward.
Great, thank you. I think the next question you have probably addressed in your comments about bullying already, but I think this is a question that we've previously discussed. But where pupils may be bullied, what supports are in place to make school a safe place? And are there any issues or changes planned to ensure our children's health and well-being? And I think you probably have touched on this, but I just wonder if you could just specifically address this particular question, please.
Yeah, obviously, if somebody is unfortunately on the receiving of bullying behaviours towards them, then our pupil support leaders or guidance teachers will be there to link in and support. We'll link in with our school counsellors, and we also link in with other external agencies who will be there to support. And obviously we want our young people to feel that we can give them the support they need to be able to come into school, to feel safe, and support them with that. And again, sometimes that will mean creating an action plan or a support plan to work with that. And make sure that our young people feel safe. And again, that was part of why the SNUG was brought into fruition, was to support the mental health and well-being of our young people. A lot of our staff are trained mental health first aiders and look to support young people. And again, you know, any member of staff is approached by a young person to report any type of bullying behaviour, then we'd expect them to follow our policies and procedures in terms of support and about making sure our young people feel safe and secure in our school building. So there's lots of support there, and it's just about making sure that we work with the young people to make sure that they get that support.
Okay, thank you. No, that's helpful, and I know you've commented in further depth, and I think obviously individual cases they should take that up with the relevant with yourselves if they have particular questions. So thank you. There's a comment here I don't know that you'll be able to really address, but it says, is it possible to build the school upwards in terms of space? I realise there were previously limits put on the height of JGHS, but is it currently one level below surrounding? But it is currently one level below the surrounding flats, as I am aware. I think we have addressed this before, and I think there isn't a budget. I think it's possibly the biggest issue at this point. But Neil, I don't know whether you have any comment that you might want to bring to that.
I think unfortunately it's a combination of that and also the fact that the school is in a conservation area, and that's part of the reason that the school is the height that it is. And obviously Boroughmuir had extension work done to it last year or the year before. So I have asked that question about whether that is a possibility, and because of the design of the building and the conservation area, the answer I'm getting is it's not one that I think they would look at doing.
Okay, that's helpful, thank you. This is more a comment than a question, but just a feedback that following the recent S5 Parents' Evening, I thought it useful to feedback that it wasn't clear that only 4 subjects could be chosen on the first day when the booking opened. That's my comment to add. I would have appreciated the option to book a 5th subject if there was space after a couple of days. So I can comment from as a parent of an S5 pupil that it was possible to book the 5th subject. However, I can also feedback that I only heard that from another parent. I did not hear that from the school. So I think the communication on that, on how many subjects could be booked and when additional spaces would open up, that was poorly or was not communicated to parents. So I think I would reiterate the feedback there, that it would be better if that was made more explicit.
Absolutely, yeah, thank you for that, and I'm sorry that if that wasn't communicated clearly, because again, absolutely, if we're going to put these policies in place to try and ensure everybody gets as much access as possible, at the same time, I absolutely want to make sure we utilise every opportunity and every appointment for parents and carers, so we need to make sure that's communicated clearly. We should be able to do that with the systems that we've got, either through email or through the school app. So I'll certainly take that feedback back, thank you, and make sure we do better going forwards.
Great, thank you. comment which we actually have addressed, but Robert asked what rooms are being repurposed as part of the response to overcrowding. So that's, I guess, the repurposing. Well, repurposing is getting some of the space at the primary school, and Neil, you've commented as well about the space to increase practical room within the current Malala building. I think I would just go to the point somebody has made, and it's a point that I guess that the Parent Council should consider, rather it's not so much for Neil, but just a comment that a parent has said, could the school or Parent Council be louder? Oh no, this is a different, sorry, this is not the question I was going to come to, but this was the question I was wanting to focus on, was about basically this Parent Council meeting being covering the whole breadth of the school, obviously from S1 to S6, and the needs of S1 pupils or interests of S1 and pupils are maybe quite different from those of people with pupils further up the school, and whether we should have two meetings, one to address issues that are more relevant to the lower school, and one that more deals with pupils in the upper school. And that's an interesting point. I don't know whether, I can't remember now whether that was an anonymous question, but thank you for making that as a point, because I think it's important that people feel that this meeting is useful, and if one group feels that it's more geared to the group they're not in, then that's obviously not helpful. So I think if the person who's written that feels that they would like to sort of share a bit more, we can maybe have a by email possibly. Would, as a Parent Council, would be very keen to hear your views and how we might operate that. I'm not quite sure that we could have any more meetings, but it'd be interesting to make sure that we do balance the interests across the stages of the school and make sure that it is relevant to as many people as possible. So thank you for the comment that was made. So I just wanted to note that one. So there's toilets, we've come again. Yeah, so somebody has commented, could the school Parent Council be louder about the needs of the school resources wise that the community could support with such a large community? Is there not more potential here to support and fundraise further? Is there a need and indeed appetite for this? And if so, what is preventing this happening? Is it lack of volunteers to coordinate this? So thank you for the comment there, because I think that we have often, and Kate, feel free to come in on this as well. We have discussed fundraising at the school. For the Parent Council, the Parent Council does not have a role per se with fundraising. So that's not our primary remit. I think our remit is to sort of interact with the school and provide that conduit of information sharing between parents and the wider parent forum, to discuss within the Parent Council and then to discuss that with the school leadership. Fundraising could be part of that, but it is not a primary remit. So our fundraising is pretty much limited to the fundraising on Parent Pay. There's a button there that you can you can give a donation to the Small Sums Fund through the tickets that we have and refreshments at events or at parents' evenings. So if you're donating for a cup of tea or whatever, that's the sort of the amount of appetite we have, and sort of the volunteers to coordinate within the Parent Council. I quite agree that there is potential to do more fundraising. We have a large parent body, and yes, it's possible. If the person posting is interested to be part and coordinate something, I think, that would be absolutely fantastic. But I think we have found within the parent body, or within the Parent Council we have now, there is simply not enough capacity to take on additional fundraising activities. So that is where we are. Very, very happy if people want to take more interest or have capacity to take on more. So I would leave that with you on the call if you're interested to get more involved with that. I think we're coming very close to the end. I think I'm just sort of quickly scrolling through the questions here. Somebody has asked, I mean, maybe Neil, maybe this will take this as the last question. There are a number of others, and we will download the questions that we have here and we can feed them back to Neil for his comment. But I think at this point we should probably draw the evening to a close. But this is just a comment to say about I'm surprised that JGHS cannot offer advanced higher history next year due to staffing issues. So what is the basis for that? Please advise, is there an update on which outside cluster schools is offering advanced higher history next year for JGHS pupils to attend? Note, the small, wonderful history department are currently doing their best, but seem so overstretched, especially with the recent S5 prelim marking. So Neil, I don't know, I guess that is a question that
Yeah, we've had a lot of staffing issues with history, but that's now settled, and we've managed to appoint a history teacher, so we have a full complement. I know Mrs. O'Brien, I spoke to her about this after we had our evening in January. She has included advanced higher history in the coursing documentation, so I know she's currently looking at that, and she was working on that further today, and I know she has been linking in with students around some subjects, so I will double check with her tomorrow and come back to you in terms of whether we are running advanced higher history in the school or whether young people would be linking in. I think it would be Boroughmuir, and we do have really strong partnership, and it's something that the authority are looking at in a wider case across the whole city. We do have a number of young people who come to us for subjects on a Tuesday and a Thursday afternoon, and from Boroughmuir and St Thomas's and close schools at other times as well, particularly in 5th and 6th year. And likewise, we have some young people who are going to St Thomas's, Boroughmuir and Edinburgh College to access qualifications that we maybe can't offer. So that partnership is there as well, and we'll continue to work with other schools and the colleges to try and make sure we can offer as many of the qualifications as possible and the pathways for our young people where possible. But I'll get confirmation in terms of the advanced higher history and exactly where we're at from Mrs. O'Brien tomorrow.
Fantastic, thank you so much. I'm sure that's greatly appreciated. There are some other questions left, but I think at this point it's now 8:45, so I think we will draw it to a close, but rest assured, I mean, I know there was a comment that somebody has made that their questions never seem to get asked. I'm not sure how. I hope for the person who had posted that you know that you have had the questions asked. I appreciate that it's a lot to get through. I think possibly, oh gosh, Neil, are you willing to answer any more questions at this time? There are a couple of things about the SQA, if you're able to, and sort of any proposed sort of rejigging, reorganisation of the SQA. Are you able to offer any?
Yeah, I mean, the SQA at the moment is changing to Qualification Scotland. They have begun that review. Was actually some meetings on Friday and Saturday where they were talking with presentations from Qualification Scotland and actually the Inspectorate, which is all part of the Hayward and the Muir reviews, which have happened over the last sort of 3 or 4 years, and about how we take Scottish education forwards. I know Qualification Scotland released last week that 3 of the practical woodwork, practical metalwork and cookery, I think it was, they have now taken out the written exam from those subjects and focused on the practical element to allow young people. So that is happening with the SQA transitioning to Qualification Scotland, and again, as we get information that comes through to us, we're more than happy to share that with parents and carers. But at the moment, it's really that transition, and it's about looking as nationally about how qualifications are taken forward and how young people are supported in terms of the pathways that they have to allow them to access university, college, apprenticeships, whatever aspect, employment straight from school. So that's really been looked at and reviewed.
Fantastic, thank you. And when do you think there'll be more information shared? I'm just wondering if that would be a useful item to have at the next parent council meeting, or is the updates are actually going to be more useful?
Yeah, well, ironically, that was one of the questions we asked at the weekend, was about having a timeline about how these processes, we were given how the process was going to happen, but it would be really beneficial for us as educators to know what that timeline looks like, and how courses are going to be adapted or amended and implemented, and obviously the timescale to do that. Okay, so maybe you'll update us. I guess that's what. Maybe we'll have the update wherever you've got to by that point. Yeah. The very last questions, I think it was relevant to some of the things that have come up today, which was, has the school been involved in discussions about recent antisocial behaviour in Tollcross, Bruntsfield, where a delivery driver was attacked and food thrown before shops were being damaged? And I don't know whether that's something that's come to Gillespie's or whether that's something you're aware of.
It's obviously a question relevant to this area.
Yeah, no, I'm afraid I haven't been made aware of that, but we do work very closely with our community police officer, school liaison officer, and again, obviously very keen to work with anyone in our local community. Certainly wouldn't want any of our young people to be involved in those types of behaviours, and obviously the criminality that can lead to. Very much in the business of education, working with young people and making them aware, and we do a lot of really good work with our school liaison officer, who is a good support. They work across both our campuses and Boroughmuir campus. We work closely with them. We also work really closely with our neighbourhood schools, the primary schools and the secondary schools. Got good relationships across the senior teams, so we do link in closely with each other. But no, that's not one that has been brought to my attention at this moment in time. But clearly, if it was, it's something we would look to support with.
Okay, thank you so much. Well, I guess that in a way maybe that's good. It's not an issue yet, but obviously it's important if it comes up with Gillespie's. Okay, I think that's a wonderful conclusion. Thank you so much, Neil, for your time and on all the inputs you've made. Thank you again as well to, I know Ian and Anna have left, but thank you very much to them for their inputs too, and to Tracy Urquhart for attending just to give her comments on the issues that we were discussing earlier. As I said, that we have left some questions that a few people were interested in, that possibly need a slightly longer reflection, and then we'll send those to Neil for his comment, and also if they're relevant to parent council activity, again we will respond to those ourselves. But at this point, I think thank you so much, and we will say good night. And yeah, please just be in touch if you have any further questions, but enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you so much for joining with us today. Bye bye for just now.